Hello, I'm Chuck Martin, and welcome to the Voices of the Internet of Things. With me today is Andy Rose, Group Creative Director at Partners and Napier. Andy has been Creative Production Coordinator at EM Squared, Videographer and Producer at Social Swiss Army Knife, and Interactive Media Supervisor at Roberts Communications. At Partners and Napier, Andy focuses on user experiences and creative branding and strategy. Welcome here, Andy.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Chuck.
Oh, glad you're here. I wonder if you could start by telling me, before your current position, you were Director of Experiences. What does that look like today?
That's a great question. I think it's really reflective of the shop or the environment you find yourself in. But we've really tried to put a concerted effort here at Partners and Napier on realizing the difference between medium and deliverable, right? What we're not delivering is digital. Right? Because digital is just a medium for us to convey something more powerful. So that's why we kind of couched our quote unquote digital or UX group as an experience group, right? Because what we're delivering at the end of the day is thoughtfully branded experiences, for humans, right? Like we're very focused on activating experiences for people and recognizing that their touch point may be an iPhone 10 versus a Galaxy Note S7 versus their desktop versus their kludgy work email inbox. There's so many different ways to reach out to somebody today. And when we talk about activating a digital experience, it's really crucial to understand that we could have the same message, but it's going to be delivered so uniquely to each human being based on their digital medium, right? So that's kind of more just a philosophical, way to kind of view digital work and try to elevate it beyond, banners and landing pages and kind of the low-hanging fruit stuff that, frankly, any shop should be able to do nowadays,
So is everything you do digital?
Yes. So as a group creative director at Partners, I have this tiny little parenthetical after it, which is digital, right? So basically I oversee anything that would be digital in our world, right? So that could be user experience strategy, that could be user interface design, that could be web development, basically anything that falls under that really big umbrella of quote unquote digital kind of falls under my group within the agency.
Can you give me an example of an experience or two?
Yeah, absolutely. We just did, we have a client who, is kind of in a kind of two modality world where they are selling still hardware or physical devices, but also trying to sell managed services, right? So they're trying to say, hey, we offer you hardware, but we also offer you business solutions that can help find efficiencies for your business. So for them, they had this kind of big event they wanted to throw to announce a new product launch, which has been, fewer and further between for them recently. They've been more focused on the services side. So we wanted to make sure we were drumming up some really cool attention and make sure that one-day launch event was a really cool experience, right, for people who were going to be attending. So we actually created an augmented reality component where the pieces, it was a printer, just to be clear what the device is, the piece that was actually being launched.
Well, that's not too exciting a product.
Right. It's not a sexy product, right? So how do we make that somehow cool or engaging, right? So for that, it was, hey, let's print out these really, really interesting, beautifully crafted art pieces that can only be created on this printer because of the special technology as far as how to, layer different types of printing techniques versus just standard color, right? Maybe there's a clear coat that a lot of print facilities aren't able to do, or maybe there's a iridescent, luminescent type of printing technique where it can really give a sheen or a shimmer to something. Again, I'm speaking out of my medium, but what I do understand is that there's some, unique value props to a printer like that, even though it might not sound super cool, but what can we do to make it a cool experience? So we created this art gallery where we had all these printed pieces, and then you would walk up and with an augmented reality application, you could scan the piece, and then the piece came to life and actually explained to you the types of printing techniques that were used on that piece and why it was a differentiator from the other competitor printers in their kind of marketplace. So that's an example of how we might take what's an unsexy ask at first blush and try to realize something that is really compelling and rewarding, end up being one of the biggest social pieces for that client in the last year, as far as just kind of organic engagement from an organic post on their account.
So did you have to create the app for that, for the AR?
No, for us, that's too much technical debt, right? That's too much overhead. There's so many off-the-shelf platforms and solutions, and they're going to be able to build them and maintain them so much quicker than we will, right? So for us, it makes a lot more sense to lean into whatever the current most cutting-edge application or SaaS service is, that we can then leverage and realize a cool creative piece quicker than focusing on maintaining or developing the infrastructure to then be able to activate or create a piece, if that makes sense.
So do you basically go outsource the AR part?
Yeah, and we're not afraid to do that. For us, it's kind of a cost of doing business. That we're in kind of this arms race right now as far as mixed reality, right? AR, VR, all that stuff. And for us, it just doesn't make a ton of business sense to exhaust resources on creating our own custom Partners and Napier augmented reality app when there's already plenty of great tools out there. But you always have to recognize, what's the business case? If client X says, hey, we are not going to ask people to go download some random app that doesn't have anything to do with our business, we have to recognize that. And if they still say, hey, we need an augmented experience, the next step for us would honestly be engaging a platform we liked and ask them about white labeling it. Like for us, there's just not a ton of intrinsic value, because by the time, if we developed something, Chuck, by the time it was actually ready to be used, honestly, we'd probably be so far behind what the current capability set would be at the time of a new off-the-shelf augmented platform.
So where do you see, since you brought it up, VR and AR heading these days? VR, of course, is a limited reach, basically, and AR is still being developed.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, for me, I'm probably going to look at it through a much different lens than perhaps someone else might. I'm a Nintendo kid, right? Like, I grew up playing video games. I still play video games, to this day. So I own, for my own personal enjoyment, a VR headset for gaming, right?
Of course you do.
Right, I would have to. I wouldn't be living my role if I didn't. But at the end of the day, it's one of those. Again, it's like the Wild West, right? There's so much that people don't understand when you start to lift up the hood. It's easy to say, yeah, I would love to just pick up my phone and scan a thing, right? Or put on a headset and be transported to another world. I mean, you have development cycles that could be 1 or 2 years long to realize a single activation, and there's so many tiers and kind of layers of fidelity of how good you could make a thing versus how quickly you could make a thing. So it's really kind of in this unsettled place right now where honestly, I think there's probably going to be someone in the next year or two who really figures it out and kind of brings to market a really disruptive approach where you can easily create something, for you and your friends as a novice, or a really smart creative group could really, unshackle the thing and let it do whatever you want. But right now there's just so many flavors of mixed reality, and we get asked a lot about doing it. And then when we start to pull back the curtain on, everything down to environment, right? Like if you're at an outdoor music festival and you have some augmented reality piece, even just the way the light is hitting let's pretend it's a poster, right? Even just the way the light is hitting that poster, it might disrupt what the application recognizes as the trigger image, and it might not even serve up the content. So there's just so many tiny little things that could be speed bumps still, that you really have to do a lot of education before you just jump in with both feet and tell a client, yeah, like this is 100% the right fit. Because honestly, right now, AR, VR, it's not the right fit for everybody. But it is hot, so it's easy to see why people want to do it.
So for virtual reality, obviously you're familiar with immersive experiences where they can be, off the charts phenomenal.
Yeah.
But most people they don't have an HTC Vive or an Oculus or the computing power to do it. How does that get to a mass market, or does it ever?
Well, for me, if you zoom out, right, great tech innovation always starts with basic human needs and wants. Right? At the end of the day, you're not going to be able to move a groundswell of people towards a piece of technology if it's not satiating some basic need or desire, if that makes sense. So there's not going to be a critical mass until someone identifies a pain point that people will be willing to adapt their lifestyle to integrate, whatever this new piece of technology is that hopefully, reduces a need or eliminates a problem.
So do you think VR will at least in the short term be in a B2B environment? I mean, you've got companies like Walmart using it for training, for example, or researchers.
First place. I mean, I'm with you on that. I think, just like Google Glass, right? Everybody was hot on Google Glass. It became, this real controversial thing. And it was a couple years ago, right? But somebody got like attacked in a restaurant or something because they were wearing Google Glass. But now it's in the private sector being used for shipping warehouses and operations fulfillment. So again, that's solving a business need, not necessarily a human need, but that's where that tech is being allowed to flourish because it's resolving an issue. So again, I don't know if that fully answers the question, but to me, like, you're not going to get a mass change or a paradigm shift until there's something really, really revolutionary that, like Alexa, like Google Home. Those are the things that people see enough intrinsic value in completing maybe minute tasks, but making things potentially easier on me. That's when people want to make a change, right? Is when it's going to benefit them. We're all selfish.
So what about AR? Obviously, that's getting dramatically better. Some of the stuff I've seen lately is really quite impressive. Did you see people ultimately, everybody wearing some kind of glasses once they get fashionable?
I think once they can look just like, your Warby Parkers, I think, yeah, then it's just the, what's the benefit to me of the expense, right? And if they can come down in price point, I think it's a combination of price point and an aesthetic, right? Like nobody wants to look like a robot. Well, that's not true. There's probably plenty of people that would want to look like a robot, but the masses don't want to walk around, looking goofy. They want something that is ideally unidentifiable and unobtrusive.
So where do you see video going in a connected world? I mean, you deal with that a lot.
Yeah, we do. And, video is still king, right? I mean, every stat that every marketer will pull will tell you how all your content marketing should be a video, but I can't see video going away in any regard, any more than, movie and TVs go away. They just evolve, right? Maybe it's not on terrestrial TV or radio anymore, but you have podcasts and Netflix and Hulu. So for me, it's always going to be crucial because people would rather watch and hear than read, and until that changes, if it ever does, with the rapid evolving, pace of technology, I don't ever see video going away. I think it will probably start to shift to being a supplemental, at some point, a supplemental, medium where people will, if there's that kind of overlap cross, right, where video becomes less important because people now have really fashionable augmented reality glasses to wear that will give them opportunities to basically view that same video content, but maybe in a different way. So I think video is always going to be around, but it might shift to kind of second place.
What about screen size? Do you think you see video being very popular on small screens of mobile phones, or do you think it's still going to be on large screens?
Really good question. I mean, browsing appetites have shown us that people are happy to watch on their phones. I'm curious to see with the soon to be released updates to Watch OS, for Apple and other competing watch manufacturers, how much are people really going to put up with? Will someone watch a full 30 seconds of video on their watch? Probably. Will somebody watch 2 minutes of content on their watch? I don't know. It'd have to be really good content, right? So I think it's all about understanding the medium, and we talk about that a lot, right? We put an exhaustive focus on our UX strategy, and that's way before we're talking about designs, right? But we're talking about these things, Will someone watch a video here versus there? What's the right amount of information to, stop my thumb scrolling through a feed, which is very different. It's a very different experience versus scrolling through a desktop experience. So we try to uncover those types of questions and philosophical debate touch points in almost every project we do, because again, it goes back to being a very human-centric creative group. We want to be respectful of even down to different accessibility needs, right? Like even just a combination of certain colors may be rendered, illegible by a screen reader or some, ADA or 508 compliance tool that helps somebody consume the content you're trying to put out there. So we ask a lot of questions around, what's best for a person versus kind of the masses. And that's where we start to really get into that stuff. And sometimes it goes down deep rabbit holes and we end up waxing poetic about, the future state of what things should be. And then we have to come back to kind of what things are and, what are the business requirements of this project versus us trying to reinvent, the way that video content is served, in your social feed.
So when you're having an internal discussion about what's video look like on a watch, does someone say, forget that, that's a stupid idea? And then someone says, no, wait, we can figure this out?
I would say nobody in our group, our digital focused experience group, would ever say that's stupid, because we recognize, the rapid pace with which this stuff evolves. Just the capabilities are through the roof already, and to consider what watchOS might provide, it could be superfluous in a lot of regard, right? There could be a lot of content that just gets jammed into a watch and looks kludgy and ugly. Our conversations are in earnest to make sure that we're being respectful of that browsing medium and not trying to overload, and really be considerate, just like you would with mobile. You have to pare down. You have to have a content hierarchy and strategy to make sure that you're only surfacing the content. The less real estate you have, the more refined, you have to be. Who is it? Woodrow Wilson, I think, said, if I'm to speak for 5 minutes, I need a week to prepare. And if I'm to speak for an hour, I'm ready now.
Yeah, that sounds like journalism, actually.
Yeah, right. So you have to just recognize and pay respect to the environment you're putting content in. And yeah, so to answer your question, no, nobody in our group is saying it's stupid to think about how video or whatever content might serve on a watch. You may have outliers who are just, tech phobic and don't have an interest in examining that, but that's our job, right? Is to try to stay at least with the evolving technology if we can't get ahead of it. So for us, it's really crucial.
So do you ever speculate on a hypothetical that you'd say the watch of the future is going to be able to project holographic images a la Star Wars? So how do we deal with that? Or do you wait and see that someone is actually developing that and then deal with it?
To be totally honest, it's more focused around near far now goals, right? So in the near term, we have to be really respecting what we're operationally creating right now and what might be right around the corner. In the far term, yeah, it's awesome to think about holograms from your watches and 3D experiences right from your phone and having some sort of OLED touchscreen interface that can also display 3D. It's great to think about that stuff, but we're more in the near and now than the far, and for us, we have to really respect what's in the market or what's really close to being able to come into the market because, our clients have real, genuine business needs. And a lot of times the super far reaching thinking is not doing them any good. So of course we have all sorts of lunch talk and, we'll hang out sometimes after hours and talk about, oh, did you see what happened in the WWDC? And, we're always interested, but we definitely have, in the business we're in, we have to make sure we're actually realizing things that are realistic for what our clients need.
And in terms of audio, where do you see that going? We've got smart speakers up the wazoo, as you know.
That's a good question. Honestly, it's interesting because I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about exclusively audio as of late. Although I should. My brother's in the music business, and that's kind of his and I's common bond is audio engineering and music, and I think there's always going to be a place for audio. I think the days of powerful performance from a radio buy are certainly, if not already behind us, very close to being behind us. But I think it's just about what is the medium providing, right? For me, audio is mostly entertainment and not really marketing at this point, at least for me personally, right? I listen to podcasts like yours. I listen to stuff you should know. I listen to stuff that's going to entertain me or make me think, but not many people want to have the the pre-roll ads, and I don't think at least our research proves out that they're not highly effective. So from a marketing perspective, I don't see a ton of value in audio, even podcast reads. I mean, honestly, depending on what podcast you listen to, it's the same few sponsors. And at some point, that becomes sort of white noise to whoever's listening, or they just use the handy feature on their phone to skip through the reads. Like there's too many opportunities to just get away from it. So I don't see audio as a really strong, viable marketing medium unless you're doing something disruptive or unique with it, right? Like, like the Burger King Google Home example, right? That was a great opportunity to play off of a piece of technology that is specifically looking for audio-based cues and to kind of use a really clever end around to be able to disrupt it a little bit and get some attention. But outside of someone really doing something creative like that, I think the days of just strictly audio strategy, and reads are just not super effective.
So what's the state of clients today? You obviously have some pretty high-tech people, but in general, are they coming to you saying, here's a problem, or are they coming to you saying, here's a problem and here's some thoughts for using some advanced technology to solve this problem?
I would say the lion's share come to us usually just saying we have a problem, and we have really great relationships with our clients. We earn trust, by starting with education, and we never try to be, professorial. We're just trying to make sure instead of, having an approach where we're saying, ta-da, we don't like big ta-da moments. We like to pull up a chair and have conversations, to have dialogue and make sure everyone's on the same page and coming from the same place. So for us, clients will come and say, look, we don't know what we need. Maybe it's an app. That's usually like the first go-to thing they say is, we think we need an app, but you guys tell us. And 99% of the time they don't need an app. But they're trying to be proactive, and we appreciate that. But we also can't expect them to be the students of technology and the digital creative that we are. That's our job, right? That's not their job. So I think they definitely get that. If they bring us a problem, we're going to bring them some pretty cool solutions, and we're going to do our best to marry those to their business objectives and goals. We're not big on fluff for the sake of fluff. As an agency, we're very focused on creative that's effective, that actually works.
Yeah, you're doing digital stuff for all platforms, basically. How do you aggregate that? Because there are a lot of platforms now that are digital.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on the brand or the client, right? Some clients have very specific tactical things that they need. Some need whole campaigns, where you got to sprinkle every touch point. So everything's kind of like a snowflake, right? We really like to lean in and just understand the situation. And that's why it's really important for us to not just work, on our client's business. We talk a lot as an agency about working in our client's business, understanding their business beyond, you're a big car company. Great. Like, we think we understand generally what people know about cars. No, we want to understand, we're talking about leasing and loans and financing. Great. Like, let's really dig into that and talk about the actual demographics of people who are getting into these vehicles with these types of lease and loan products, and what are their media consumption habits. Like, we really try to break it down, because what we don't want to do is tactics for the sake of tactics. And what we don't want to do is spend money where it's not going to be effective for a client. We have a client come to us and say, hey, we want to do a bunch of Facebook carousels. We say, well, okay, we could do that, but we could also do, based on the research we have, we could do a Facebook Canvas ad, and we'd probably get, 20% lift in performance, but that we only know that by understanding, our client's business at a really granular level.
So at the very beginning of your career, you came out of New York Film Academy. Is that stuff still relevant today? Oh,
man. Yes, of course. Because for me, I mean, Chuck, I've had such a kind of wanderlust creative career, which has been really rewarding for me. But kind of the one guiding principle that I still follow in everything that we try to do and everything I try to do is to be telling stories, right? We're always telling stories. And if someone can feel an affinity for a brand, and we can build a closer connection for a brand to their end customers through the lens of storytelling, we can do that in any medium. We can tell a story in print as easily as we can tell it in video, as easily as we can tell it, in a web experience. But, film school for me was all about, how are you telling this story? How are you conveying exactly what you want to convey and leaving out what you want to leave out? As a filmmaker, as a storyteller, you have that opportunity to, massage the message. And also we're trying to tell those brands stories in the most human way possible, right? Like business speak sucks. Nobody likes that, right? Like don't talk to me like a lawyer because I'm not one and I won't understand it. I'm not smart enough to understand that. What I do understand is when you touch a string or a nerve or some emotion in me that stirs me and compels me from leaning back in my chair to leaning forward. So for me, film school was the most important thing I did as far as setting myself up for a career as a creative director.
So as a storyteller, when you create a story for a brand, are they measuring that by brand affinity or by products sold or services sold? What's the measure for basically storytelling?
Great question, because everything we do has to be measurable, right? We are no longer in that day and age where we can say, hey, we built a website for you. Well, great. How's it performing? What were the goals? Just like any creative project, you have goals at the outset, right? It might be awareness. It might be engagement, click to complete this form and get, email marketing content right in your inbox. There's always some measurable, quantifiable goal, usually multiple ones. And that's kind of the real fun of being a creative in an agency setting, right? Is to rub the hard business needs up against, what could be a really human focused way to reach someone, and not, an expected or cliche way of, like every car commercial looks the same. And like, I feel like every car commercial has looked the same for the last 10 or 15 years. And only recently, in the past year or two, are you starting to see car companies go, okay, we get it. Like, this is a super cliche way to tell this story. And we're starting to see some more innovative approaches. But yeah, I mean, measurement is so crucial to everything we do. I mean, we stack up analytics properties. We have, we have deep analytic reporting. It all depends on what the goal is. But we have really, really whip smart people who will tell you all about our social retargeting campaigns and why that's, more effective than a general awareness campaign or a targeted campaign to this vertical. It's all about marrying the measurement to that really compelling story that hopefully people are going to find interesting enough to fill in the blank, whatever the business goal is.
Well, in your car example, at the end of the day, doesn't the car company just want to sell more cars?
You would think so, but we're seeing with some of our clients, there's a shift in the car business, right? Now, you can subscribe to BarkBox, you can subscribe to Netflix. Why can't you subscribe to your car? Why can't you pay one amount every month? A lot more than Netflix, granted, but why can't you pay one amount every month and change cars whenever you want? I mean, that's in a sense a lease product, right? So there's a lot of disruption going on, and you see a lot of brands are actually piloting, a lot of car vehicle brands. I won't say which ones are ours, but there's several car brands out there saying, hey, here's a subscription car service, try it out, have it delivered to your door, and we'll take away the one you were driving. So there's definitely some disruption going on there too. It's not so much about, X number of metal, it's about X number of dollars. And if we can produce less metal, but collect more dollars on a monthly basis, that's a pretty good business win.
Got it. What about smart speakers? Alexa, as you know, and Google Home are going off the charts in terms of at least U.S. ownership. Where do you see that heading?
I think there's a lot of kind of uncharted territory still. I think that goes back to what I was saying before about, great tech really starting with uncovering or solving for basic human needs and wants, right? It's not Alexa, but I don't know have you heard of Ovi? Have you heard of this thing? It's a Chicago startup. It was like on Kickstarter or something. And basically it's these color tags that go on your food storage containers in your fridge, and they change color and send you notifications to your phone to say, hey, the Brussels sprouts are expiring. You should probably eat them. And here's a couple quick recipe options that you could use your 3-day-old Brussels sprouts in. So that's, nobody wants to be wasteful, right? Nobody wants to throw away that food. So whatever your industry, just ask yourself, does the technology, whether it's an Alexa or this, food storage thing, is this thing we're putting out in the world serving a core human need or interest? And do we contextualize the relationship between the brand and the end human using it properly or clearly? So I'm not trying to avoid that question so much as it just ladders up to a larger ethos, right? How is this tech making things better or easier? And I think the more ways that brands can find to do that, the more the market share will grow for those devices.
Great stuff. Thank you, Andy. And thank you all for listening to the Voices of the Internet of Things.
Thank you.